Aik, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you.
It is a pleasure to chat with you. I really do appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uh, Squeal is a fascinating film. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. You know what? It's fun. It's it is a wonderfully strange mix of genres. Um, where did you get the idea for the film?
Initially, it was an idea to make a modern Western in Sam Peckinpah style.
Hmm.
Even the title was a Piggypa, and then it's transformed to something very different. And when the script was ready, I was trying to find the key how to tell the story, because when it's on a paper, there are like a different 20 ways how you can make 20 different films. But I wanted to find the right tone of telling the story. And then I remembered one of my favorite films, Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, and I understood that I need to tell the story in a way how that it's been written or illustrated, like the illustration for a novel,
Hmm.
and afterwards it became much easier for me to tell the story and in a visual way, not trying to be very smart, but to be in a good mood, with very precise compositions. And we also been inspired by the paintings of European Flemish masters of the 18th, 19th centuries, and was for reasons why we were looking for very specific landscape which
Hmm.
could resemble exactly this Flemish Flemish landscape, and not typical for our region. And yeah, and I didn't want to make just another film. I tried to find the fresh air. And I know that Barry Lyndon is a very old film, but in the same time, it's a forgotten film, and it wasn't so successful. And I was very always fascinated with films where I haven't been a big success.
That's that's fair. Well, it's a joy. I was wondering, like, it's very much a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Um, Very much so. It borders at times on horror, but then leans into it's such a fascinating mix. The I was wondering what inspired the use of voiceover.
The narrator, I always had this narrator in my script.
Hmm.
Of course, in the process will change, but what I wanted to do, I want to use I want to use a forgotten tool in literature when the narrator make the spoilers.
Hmm.
And for example, Garcia Marquez' 100 Years of Solitude, if you read this book, there are like a spoilers from the author who tells what is going to happen in after 50 or 100 pages. And I wanted to use this tool because I remember everyone wanted to convince me that it's not the right thing to make spoilers in the film, but I told them that it's a good way how to hold the audience interest, because when you know that something is going to happen bad with the pigs, you will sit and wait for that moment how it's going to happen, and the audience become like a god,
Hmm.
because it knows more than the characters know. And yeah, and this narrator, of course, some people are thinking that I use a narrator to told I don't know, the exposition or whatever, or to push forward the story. But actually, I had also the version in the cutting room without the narrator. And I remember my producer all the time, he tried to convince me not you don't use the narrator, it's a bad thing. When I sent him without the narrator version, then he became a bit more convinced, confident about the narrator, because he gives a tone ironic. It helps the audience to how to follow the story. And also he sometimes he speaks bullshit, but this bullshit makes the perception of film more lighter and not so heavy and full of information and all the stuff. This film could exist also without the narrator, which is good sign for a script, but the bad sign for a film.
Mm. I actually like that about it. I thought the narrator really added to the storytelling atmosphere of it. In fact, I think it sort of grounded it.
Definitely.
Uh, I was wondering, just from your perspective, fairy tales are often very dark. They often are across the board. And I was wondering why it is that we associate fairy tales with such heavy darkness sometimes. They're supposed to be bedtime stories, and that's not what you want to hear right before bed if you're a child.
It depends from the cultural background of a fairy tale. I think, of course, the Brothers Grimm are horror. It's a horror story. So it's Brothers Grimm. They didn't write positive fairy tales, but when it's dark, you try to see something. When
Mm,
it's a very light, it makes you blind.
mm,
And of course, the dark fairy tale. There is always evil. There is the evil or villain, and uh, and the life also is dark. And I think through fairy tales we prepare our kids that this life is not going to be always sunny and and easy.
mm. Yeah, I love that absolutely. I just in reading the press notes for the film, one of the things you say is that you wanted people to understand that if we want to be loved, we must first care for each other. I was just wondering what that means to you in the context of the film.
It means that when you love someone or you care to someone, it makes you to forget about your freedom.
Mm,
For example, do you have kids?
yeah, absolutely, two of them.
Two. Me too. I also have two kids.
Mm,
I hate one fact about my about this all these things about my kids that I'm uh, I'm not free anymore. I don't have freedom. I'm not speaking about every day like that I can go there. No, I'm slave of this love because they are more important than me. And this the fact that I'm not this fact of that I'm not free anymore, it drives me crazy. And that is why in this film more is about that the love is a slavery,
mm,
uh, because we have responsibilities. Freedom is when you don't have responsibilities, when you don't love. I'm not talking about romantic love, yeah. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about this real love, when we don't want to dominate or to conquer anyone. It's a real love, and in that moment you can't do anything against this love. Of course you can like I don't care, fuck off, I will live my life, but it's not a good way how you can do it. It's not a freedom. All the time you will be a slave of this decision that you have not forgotten, but um, you have forbidden you forbid this love, that you have just made this step against against this natural love.
mm.
That is why in the end of the film the main character starts to hesitate about the things what he did. He understands that he's not free anymore.
Yeah, that I don't want to say too much about the ending, but it's definitely one of those ones where you're sort of left wondering what the next step is going to be. Provided you want to make Squeal 2 or Squeal again or whatever you'd like to call it.
Actually, we had a joke that maybe this guy, Yanchuk, who was a villain of a film, whose eyes were
Yeah.
squeezed. But the sequel could be that this blind guy is trying to find Sam. It would be very funny to make a dark comedy about the blind guy who is looking for for revenge.
It's true. I have to ask you about the animals. I want to ask you about the animals too, and both literally and figuratively. But first, I'll talk about literally. They say you should never work with kids or animals. That's the saying. How was it working with the pigs?
With animals, it's much easier than with human beings because uh, animals don't have ambitions; they have only memories. They don't think. Human beings they think what directors tell them, and then we start having the problems. Um, I remember before shooting, everyone was stressed out about the fact that we are going to work with pigs. I remember very well that I told them, guys, remember my words. We are going to have more problems with human beings than with the pigs, and I was right. But I will never make films with kids. It's like I don't have a patience. I have two kids. For me, it's enough. I don't want to make films. I would make film for kids, but not with kids.
Right, right, fair. I There is a fascinating conversation happening in this film about the pigs, and I was just wondering, in your mind, what separates man from animal? Because forgive me, I forget the name of the protagonist. I think he's just the foreigner. I think that's his name in the.
Samuel.
Oh, Samuel. Yeah, yes, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Um, he- but there's actually a point where he says, you know, we're eating the same things, and but that was different then, but now we have to, sort of thing. I was wondering what you think the difference lies.
Animals don't have ambitions.
Mm,
Human beings have ambitions. Human being thinks about the future. Animal thinks about only about now, about the present,
mm,
and 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 animal never ever have a conscious realization about himself as a creature.
mm,
I don't think the pig thinks that he's pink, but the man thinks about what he's a man.
mm,
This is only different, but the rest is the same. I
mm,
think that animals also have love, actually, not romantic love, but love what we spoke before. We have many evidence where we see how mother is trying to sacrifice himself for kids or to save the kids. It's a natural love. But the rest, what I mentioned, it makes us different from animals. Yeah.
mm, mm. Yeah, that's true. Um, the film's a joy.
Thank
Um,
you.
I
Thank
just
you.
as we wrap up, I'm wondering what you hope audiences take from the film.
I think that what I want when film ends, the audience have a smile on the face and the sadness in the heart.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. That is an effective way to describe the ending of the film, actually. I am fully on board with that. That's great. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for this chance also. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. It's a fascinating film. I wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks again.